Let us chant Namo Tassa before the start of the session. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right, so we have gone over what Papanca is, how it works, and we've gone through the key classifications that the Papanca-saññā saṅkhā term, and we've covered those grounds as to what Papanca is, what saññā means, and what saṅkhā means, isn't it, everyone? Yeah. So on part 1 and part 2, as you've gone through the recordings, as you've reflected on what we've spoken about before, do you have any questions as to the methods and mechanisms of Papanca and what it essentially is and how it works? Do you have any questions before we move on to what we are going to talk about today, which is really unraveling it? Right. Yes, Lakshman.
Bhante, what is the exact definition of Papanca, please?
The exact definition of Papanca. Well, exact definition of Papanca. The exact definition of Papanca would be Papanca. So then the word, we covered the ground that within the Tripitaka, the word Papanca does not stand alone. That it always stands with a term or within the sentence, the definition sentence of it being Papanca-saññā saṅkhā. Right? In the beginning of part 2 and the ending of part 1, we went over the different definitions or the way that different monks and scholars have attempted to translate this definition sentence. Papanca-saññā saṅkhā is like a definition sentence, right? And we quoted Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, we quoted Venerable Jnanananda, Venerable Analayo, and also Petaling, right? Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi offered the definition of it being perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation, right? There was another offered by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, which was perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. Venerable Analayo had translated Papanca-saññā saṅkhā as concoctions of proliferation and cognitions, right? Petaling had translated it in its literal sense, proliferation of conception and perception, right? It stands to be, to this day, it stands to be one of those terms that have become or has been very difficult to reach one fixed definition upon, right? And to understand what Papanca is, we have to understand it in its 3 aspects, being Papanca, saññā, and saṅkhā, right? Saññā and saṅkhā relating to Papanca. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Yeah. One moment. If we take it, if Papanca-saññā saṅkhā can be taken as a definition, formations of countless ideas on account of misdirected thinking, that is manjana, misdirected thinking, right? So if we are asking for a definite definition, then it really depends on who's translating Papanca-saññā saṅkhā. Yes, something. Cannot hear you.
Sorry, Bhante. If you read the Madhupindika Sutra in Pali, in Pali it says, yang vitakketi tang papancheti. Right? Here the papancheti is a verb. That means it's a proliferation. Yeah, it's a verb.
Yeah.
It's sort of action.
Proliferation or proliferates?
Proliferate.
Rates.
Yeah. So yang vitakketi tang papancheti. Cheti is a verb. Yeah. Now, then it says, tato nidanam purisang Papañca-saññā saṅkhā samudacharanti. So, samudacharanti. The samudacharanti is in Sinhala you call it hasirenawa. So you actually Papañca-saññā saṅkhā ola hasirenawa.
Yeah.
If you translate from the original Madhupindika Sutra, right? And in essence is proliferation with underlying action of what is that? Raga or
Tanha
ditthi mana. Underlying.
Yeah.
Proliferation, but underlying action is tanha ditthi mana.
Yeah. Yes. The mechanisms through which it works.
That's right.
And we are going to go into this further today, right? Further today to sort of, because in hopes of understanding how we unravel it, we will then understand what is it.
Yeah.
That as well. But we went through the fact that Papanca-saññā saṅkhā operates even at the level of latent tendency. Then we have to understand the connection between Papanca and the Anusaya. And what put it there? How did Papanca get into Anusaya? And then, if so, what does Anusaya mean? In what sense does Anusaya then exist? Is also these questions that we are going to be exploring today, right? Exploring today. Any other questions? No one? Okay. May I go ahead then? Okay. Right. Now that we have covered the definition and gone into the three phases or the parts of that definition, Papanca, Saññā, and saṅkhā, now we have a certain understanding of how Papanca works, how Papanca manifests, and in its manifestation, what it does. To recap upon what we spoke about last week, we spoke about how in Buddhism, we believe that we do not have free will. The Buddha categorically says that the beings that have free will are only those who are enlightened, right? Why? Because processes such as Papanca-saññā, saṅkhā, or Papanca does not work within those who are enlightened, right? These are people like you and I who have practiced, who have committed to the practice to such an extent where they come to realize the workings of kilesa at a subconscious level and maintained a style of life, and I mean it in that sense, a style of life, a lifestyle, and Yonisomansikara attributing to Vipassana, where we do not fan the fires of Tanha Dittimana, where Papanca can gain even more strength in these processes that we undergo on a day-to-day basis. This is a very important part, everyone. Right? This is a very important part. Also, one of the reasons that I have asked all of you to continue with your Buddhanusati practice throughout the day. Right? Buddhanusati practice throughout the day. And today, as we progress, you will understand how this continuity of Yonisomansikara, not just Yonisomansikara, right? The Buddha did not become enlightened to teach us to be good persons. The Buddha attained enlightenment to teach us how to gain exit from this cycle of rebirth and death, right? Mind you, that even people who are good find themselves entrapped within samsara without the ability or without the hope of exit, right? Bad people turn good, good people turn bad. This is all a part of the samsaric journey, right? Samsaric journey. Now, knowing that Papanca works, proliferates through thought, supported by the Anusaya, right? Supported by the Anusaya, and how within a Viti process, Papanca then enters a stream of consciousness to alter the way that we see and behold things, data, taken in through Chakku, Sota, Gana, Jibha, Kaya, and Mano, Dwara, right? How it alters us. And this we called, this alteration we also refer to as Mannyana. Isn't it, everyone? Remember, Mannyana, an hallucination or an illusion of mind, right? The Buddha did not cut any corners in using this word Mannyana, because he outright says, you're imagining this. You are completely making this up. Which does make sense, because without complete knowledge of what is going on, we continue to make or come into conclusions, don't we? Right? We judge another person or an instance without completely understanding entire streams of data behind its procedures or what has led to it becoming. So when we do not have an idea of all the data, how are we coming into conclusions where we now completely believe it just because we thought it? That is Mannyana, right? That is Mannyana. Now, in that taking or believing of an element caused by Mannyana, right, we have, of course, proliferation, right? Proliferation is Mannyana, Mannyana is proliferation, right? Mannyana can be also mentioned to be another word for proliferation, but it kind of relates to the wrong or the illusionary part of that proliferation. Is that understood, everyone? Because remember, Tanha, Ditti, Mana are three categories through which Papanca works. Mannyana is also Tanha Mannyana, Ditti Mannyana, Mana Mannyana. Right? Tanha, Ditti, Mana, Mannyana. Now, when we go through this process, we went through the impersonal, the personal, and how the object now turns into the subject. Remember? We went through that as well, which is a very interesting process, right? Now, we ended the class last time by briefly touching upon certain aspects of the Paticca Samuppada, right? certain aspects of the Paticcasamuppada, of how, for example, phassa, contact, right? Now we know, we studied in our study of the Indriya Bhavana, we went over the fact of sense object, sense consciousness, and prasada rupa, isn't it? When all of these three parts come together, or in its coming together, or its coming together itself, is what? Phassa. That phassa explains dependent origination. That process of it coming together explains, right, dependent origination. We see dependent origination in that first part of the sense experience itself, right? Does anyone have any questions? Is it clear, everyone? I don't mind explaining something that we've gone through again. If anyone, even one person, if you do not understand, I will explain again gladly. Does anyone want any clarifications to be made? Is everyone okay? Okay. Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Bhante,
Okay. Yeah.
I can't come to terms with the what you said just now about free will, that we don't have free will. I thought we can do things either with yoniso manasikara or ayoniso manasikara, and then change the whole thing before the Jauna Chittas come.
Yeah.
If you don't have the free will, now if I see a mosquito, I can decide, am I going to kill this mosquito or just let it fly away? So there's a free will there. We can either do something good or bad. So I think we have got a free will, Bhante.
No.
Let's all take a vote and vote on Mala.
No.
We don't agree, Bhante. We don't agree. We don't have free will.
No.
We don't
In
have
that
free
case, we
will.
are robots. Are we robots then?
No,
Oh, yes, we
Bhante,
do that.
as long as
We believe illusions and hallucinations.
as long as you believe in anusaya,
Yeah.
there's no free will.
As long as you believe in self.
Self.
Yeah.
I, me, and
Self,
mine.
yeah.
Yeah. Because that only goes when you're an arahant. So if you say that
that's right.
that you're God, then you're really saying you're an arahant.
So what happens? So what happens in this process? Mala has a point, right? Mala has a point. However, a condition laid previously supporting the present effect is also hetu pala. Hetuak nathuwa phale tiyenne naha. Because the condition was laid, that condition now gives pala, fruit. That is why we don't have free will, because we are operating, we have the ability, right, because of condition to now lay conditions, create conditions. However, does not mean that we are free. We are still conditioned, but with another set of conditions. That is why in Buddhism it says we do not have free will, because regardless whether these conditions are kusala saṅkhāra or akusala saṅkhāra, they are still saṅkhāra. They are still saṅkhāra, right? These things that we do, in order that we subscribe to a way of life, a Dhammic way of life, that Dhammic way of life is also a condition, right? So up until we attain the fullest form of enlightenment, this condition will run. This condition will run, right? A good sort of sign of this condition happening is, let's think about this. I've been doing this for a year. I should keep on doing it. Condition. Right? I meditated yesterday, so I should definitely do it today. Condition. Right? We've been doing this meritorious deed on behalf of our parents for 20, 30 years now. We should not neglect it now. Condition. These are all conditions that have been laid. Those conditions makes us, or the effects comes to fruit because of those conditions. Not free will. Not free will. The mind can progress when people are unable to, or when they are not aware of the power they hold in bringing about condition, that is a weak person. When people are aware of the power that they hold in bringing about positive and wholesome conditions into their life, that is a person who is, to a certain extent, awake. When beings realize the way out of condition entirely, such beings are known as enlightened ones. Right, enlightened ones. Does that make sense, Mahā? Does anyone have any,
Thank you, Bhante.
Does anyone have any other question? Because Mahā has given me the foundation for the continuity of this class today. Right. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. Just as an example, yeah, I get the bit that we're all living in conditioned circumstances. So an example of an Arahant, how would, now an Arahant is non-conditioned, so they have lost their self. They're not, a belief of, not belief, they have, they're no longer self, they don't believe, I mean, they're not, person, they've lost their self-identity. So how would they react?
Act and react?
No, sorry, yeah, how would they conduct their life? Like, so we are going through our conditioned, wholesome, and all the rest of it, positive way. So how in an Arahant, so in an enlightened being, how would they behave then, as an example?
Very good question, Samantha. Very good question. Now, this question, how do Arahants conduct and go about their life?
Oh, yes, better said. Yeah, that's it.
Right. Isn't that what you said, Samantha?
Yeah, you put it well. Yeah.
No, that's exactly what you said.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. I thought you sounded a bit, okay, eloquent. Yeah.
That's exactly what you said. Now, let's take that sentence, everyone. How does an Arahant then conduct or go about their life? For an Arahant, that question is wrong. We try to see the Arahant through the eyes of Arahant wanting to continue his life. First of all, the need of life continuity is not there for an Arahant, because the need for life continuity is self. This is where the paradigm shift essentially happens, Samantha. Right? This is where the paradigm shift essentially happens. Where the enlightened being, this is not to say that the enlightened being has no will to live, right? But his actions are not to continue life. His actions are to do with being in the present, right? His actions are to do with being in the present. Not to say, now, for example, the Buddha, right? The Buddha determined, okay, I will go to Shravasti. I will go to this Aranya or that Aranya. I am going to see this person or that person. And he goes and finds himself now on a journey, isn't it? the Buddha made decisions and he starts a journey. But now, let's come back to the Papanca study. Keep that story in mind. The Buddha makes plans where the Buddha says, okay, I am going to spend my vasa here. Right? Arahants made that plan. The Buddha made that plan as well. Right? Now, have that story in your mind, everyone. And let's come back to the Papanca. What does the Papanca do? The Papanca, what does the Papanca do? The Papanca is about, one of the functions of Papanca is from the past, right? Attribute present object to past objects and to make decisions based off the past, right? Based off the past. Now, does an Arahant do that? The Arahant does not do that. The Arahant lives in the present. This might, to us mundane beings, seem very extraordinary, because obviously we have grown up all that we know to do, and what we hold as normal is the fact that we measure experiences through past experiences. This is where we say in the process of enlightenment, where there is an entire shift in the modern pattern of thinking. This is spoken about through Vottapana, the Gotrabu. When the change of lineage happens, we as mundane beings are stuck on a certain pattern and way of thought, brought together, molded through what? Self-continuity. Self-continuity. Hence, those attributes or the way when we say, okay, how can we be in the present and not base our present moment through past experiences, or even at times the future, what we want in the future, right? For example, we do not associate, or we do not see ourselves, or we do not create an environment where we are seen with a certain person, because we know if a certain photograph or something is taken, this might, in the future, we might have to answer to this, right? So we do not make plans with people to be seen with them in public, or maybe even cut ties with such people, because we want our reputations to be guarded. So we do not want, so past and the future. This is where the paradigm shift happens. The Arahant's way of thought is not a manifestation or a result of a condition powered by the past nor the future. The way the mind works in this sense changes for an Arahant. When the Prapanchas lose their ability and hold over the being, and when the Anusayas are no more, the mind works at a completely different paradigm. At a completely different paradigm. The only thing which makes us nervous, or even think of, nervous about teaching such as this, right? That is why obviously we will not teach something of this sort to beginners, because they will be so confused, right? They will be so confused. The reason that we only sort of go into such depths with people who have some sort of experience with Dhamma is because in these teachings, it speaks about that shift of paradigm from self-based thought to selfless thought. So the Arahant does not consider the continuum of life with such great importance. The Arahant focuses on right action, right livelihood, all those right bits and parts of this Eightfold Noble Path, and being a person who truly owns the Dhamma, his mind only works in such a manner. In such a manner. Does that make sense, Samantha? Does that make sense?
Yes, Bhante. Yeah.
Any follow-up question on that?
Not at the moment. I need to digest that. But I think I know what you're saying. They're not creating new Dhamma. They're just living in the present and just carrying on like that.
Yes, and I'm going to explain that further, Samantha. Right?
Thank you.
Explain that further. Now, today's lesson. Any other questions before we move on again? Anyone else? So Mala's and Samantha's question. Yes, Tansi.
Bhante, can you explain in terms of perception, saṅkhā, what you explained that?
Right.
So what sort of saṅkhā the Arhat would have?
Well, the saṅkhā of the Arhat, maybe we will be able to better understand it by process of elimination, Damsiri.
Okay, all right.
Right. Now, if we take saṅkhā and we eliminate Papanca, then think of the saṅkhā that would work there. Pure perception with base upon what is real.
And present.
And present.
Yeah.
Right? What is present? Now, when we look at something, we do not know entirely its reality. Now, anyone here could be having a very sort of pleasant smile and all of that, right? But obviously we have so much going on in our lives, isn't it? Right? So much going on in our lives. Now, if I am to look at you and assume that you have no troubles in your life, or not troubles, even hurdles or challenges in your life, I would be completely out of touch with the reality of humans, right? We all have struggles and challenges. In that case, what would then saṅkhā be like for an Arhat? The Buddha, or the way of the Buddhas, sheds a certain light upon this. Buddhas never make definite judgments upon people because of their actions. Right? Meaning, the Buddha never classifies people as good nor bad. However, speaks of the action that has just been done as good or bad. Does that make sense, everyone? Now, in an Arhat, now you don't just become an enlightened being. You become an enlightened being through this amazing insights that you have through your vipassana and your meditation. Such a being would have an understanding of the fact that what is before me is a result of so many conditions. And this person, Nama and Rupa, with all past, present, and future sankharas, conditioning this person of this moment. This person, whilst this person is at this moment happy, might be having so much going on in their lives. What is the thought process of an Arahant in that sense then? If we are to eliminate thought based upon the past, thought based upon the future, and present moment awareness with that connectivity, right, and genuine insight, then we can find saṅkhā to be the person understands what is real, the fact that, okay, we are having a nice time here, but does not delude oneself with the fact that these people are free of trouble, free of challenge, isn't it? If I'm to word it in another sense, we do not take or make extreme judgments of people and completely subscribe to a single perspective. We are simply aware. Does that make sense? A single perspective is what, this person looks to be happy, and we believe it. This person has no troubles in their life, and we believe it. The Arahant does not make foolish thoughts of that sort. Yeah, the Arahant knows cause and effect. Yeah, through insight. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah. So maybe by process of elimination, Dhamsari, we can better understand what the saññā of an Arahant could be. Then api manasa kata karana anga tika apita yamkisi mattamakata therennawani. We understand the certain features of the mind and perception that defiles the mind, right? If we are to take those parts away, what would saññā be? Because if I am to, because that question, Dhamsari, if I am to explain, I mean, it would be a complete lie. How can I explain? You know what I mean? No, we can only work with what we know. You know, right? Now, are we able to, Dil, do you want to say something?
No, but isn't that why to Vachagutta and all those things, the Buddha always says seamless, boundless, but never, you can't describe to a person who has never seen and realized it. You can't put, they're fathomless. That's what is always, it described that. But while we will look at the saṅkhā and the Olarika, and we will work, and that is the way that we try to understand. But for them, it's not like that, Bhante. They just, the insight, it's like that. So we will today think, now, what are we going to eat tomorrow? Who's going to do this? And if a child comes, then but they won't have any of that. It's just a being, and that's it. There is no kind of thing. So, but it for us, because we are in the third dimension, this kind of fifth dimension kind of thinking with no time, place, and even beyond, it's not conceptually possible for us because we do not have the neurological, all the elements of consciousness that have to be evolved to have that realization, Bhante. Just as simple. It's like at the moment whenever the medical student, I remember we had seen just through the microscope and we had seen bacteria and things. Then all of a sudden, we had an electron microscope. And when I looked at my hand, there were like worms all over it, right? And I got shocked that I used to never always watch, we just eat anything. But because of the magnification of that, things we never saw, we saw. So this process of consciousness, as we go to fifth dimension, sixth dimension, up to 12 dimensions, right? From human to the Deva realm to the Brahma veil. They get finer and finer. The subtle bodies go, they go. So in the same way, the perception, the ability to see becomes very much more rarefied. And you can, that's why you can hear being from out there, do all those. So in the same way, your consciousness is that, the pure consciousness is, the unconditioned is that, that's what the Nibbana is. We are still conditioned, Bhante.
Yeah, and it also says now when we take the 89, 121 Chitta, 52 Chaitasikas, 28 Rupas and Nibbana is the most complex out of all. Yeah. Right? I mean, when we look at the Abhidhamma Sangraha, it doesn't really offer, I mean, what to say to mundane beings, what to say. How can it be put into the experience? How can it be put? I mean, even the fact of us thinking that, even trying to sort of imagine prapañca නැතුව මනස කටයුතු කරන විදිය හිතන්නව තමාරුයි නේද? If we can't, if we find it difficult to imagine a process of mind without defilement and kilesa, then what are we talking about nirvana, right? Yeah. So coming back to the lesson now. Let me just pull up a chart of the Paṭṭhāna. Right. Do you see? Let me see whether I can. I've just pulled out a random chart, everyone, right, for our sake of study. Right. Now, when we look at this, right, this chart, now we find avidya paccaya saṅkhāra, saṅkhāra paccaya viññāna, nama rupa, salayatana, passa vedana, the 12 links, right, the 12 links. Now, in these 12 links, look at ignorance and mental formations. Avidya paccaya saṅkhāra. Avidya paccaya saṅkhāra, this is a past cause. It is because of avidya and samskara that this process of mind, this process of being, this process of self, all of that exists because of the ignorance, where we think of the validity and solidity of self, Atma, where we are unable to comprehend true impermanence, the aspects of suffering in nama, rupa, internal and external, right? And through mental formations, right, we create, we mold, we create, not mold, create the foundations and the pillars of our self. Is that understood, everyone? Right? Interrupt me anytime if you want to have a question. This is a past cause. Atita hetu. Right? Past cause. Because of this past cause, we have present effects. Vardhamana mote me atite api janita karagatta hetu tika phala denna vidhi. Right? How the past causes gives fruit in the present. How does it give fruit? It gives fruit through consciousness, mind and matter, 6 senses, contact, feeling. Contact and feeling. Again, consciousness, mind and matter, salayatana, 6 senses, contact, feeling. These are present effects. These present effects is what is within our domain at the moment. At this very moment, as you sit in your homes and I sit here, wherever we are, whoever who is within this forum or outside of it, regardless, every person within their domain has these 5 at this present moment in time. Right? Now, these are present effects. There are also present causes. Present causes which lead to future effects. What are the present causes? Craving, attachment, becoming. Power. Right? Becoming. of these 12 Paticca-samuppada links, what can we control? Or rather, where do we, or how, or which areas can we exercise some sort of control? Let us look at this by process of elimination. The past is past. The future is yet to arise. Right? Is yet to arise. Then we are left with present effects and present causes. Present effect and present causes. Now, anusaya, prapanca dhammas are strengthened through past causes. It is these past causes that fuel the prapanchas and the anusayas. Because of these mental formations, further strengthened by ignorance, we have developed a stream of anusaya. A stream of anusaya, just as a stream of kamma and the stream of consciousness, going with us every step of the way, right? Every step of the way. Hence, we cannot control that. We cannot control this. However, this ignorance and mental formations goes through a domain which is within our present life, me mohata, this present moment, which is consciousness, mind and matter, 6 senses, contact, feeling. The practice of sila, samadhi, prajna all fall into this category of present effect. Because this is what we experience at this very moment. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, at this very moment. If we can affect, or if we can influence rather, consciousness, mind and matter, 6 senses, contact and feeling, then that will have an effect upon what? Craving, attachment, becoming. But without a present influence over this present domain, we are unable to influence craving, attachment, and becoming. Nor are we able to influence the later arisings of future effects, birth and aging. Birth and aging. Right? Now, let us put it into an easier way of understanding. What we do and how we perceive data of the present moment would determine the strengths of karma that we develop, which leads to what? Birth, aging, and the death process. If we live a life of compassion, love, understanding, the aging process will not be affected everyone. Right? If you are charitable, if you looked after your friends and family, if you are a friend to your children and you treated them right, if you are a valued member of the community, do such people ever die horrifically and in ways that they are alone and all of that? This will affect this. Present effect then has an effect on the future effects. Right? Future effect. But the only thing that we can control within these 12 links is consciousness, this present effects. Only this area. Right? Only this area. Now, ignorance and mental formations will arise, because mainly powered by the past. Mainly covered by the past. But where do we now start realizing or coming into a sense of awareness? When this stream flows. When this stream flows. So what do? Back to Mala's question, right? We influence the conditions that presents itself to us within this present moment. Now, why didn't the Buddha allow people who have debt to become monks? People who have not received the permission of their partners or families to not become monks? People who are not human and all of these things to not become monks. Why? Because these do not allow for the bringing about of a condition that is conducive to enlightenment. If you're becoming a monk to hide from your debt, then you're going to be worried as a monk. Who's going to come find me? That is not the condition. We manipulate, or rather create conditions that are wholesome, that are supportive of our supramundane parts, in order that what? Craving, attachment, and becoming loses its strength. Loses its strength. Now, for example, when people intoxicate themselves to an extent where they have no awareness of their actions, body, speech, right? What do? They make mistakes. They act in ways that brings embarrassment upon themselves and their families. They say things in public that they should not be saying. All of these things follow, right? So then what does a sealer do? Sealer cuts that off. I do not drink. I am a person who does not drink. Then what happens? Your life becomes more conducive to the supramundane path. Supramundane path, not developing sankharas that leads to karmic resultants of alcoholism, of lying, of killing, of stealing, of these 5 karmas. What are these 5? These 5 karmas are very strong. It hinders our spiritual path. That is why at the time when people were so aware and they valued the spiritual sense of being so much so that the Brahmin class sat on top of the Shastriyas, the rulers. Why? Because they considered spirituality of utmost importance. That sense of mental development. Hence, everyone, the only place that we can, or the only domain within the present that is under our control is consciousness, mind and matter, 6 senses, contact, feeling. Right? Now, what does 6 senses mean? 6 senses is salayatana. This salayatana, the Buddha talks about now Indriya Sambara. Indriya Sambara falls towards salayatana. Because if you're not looking, if you're not giving in through to the different salayatanas, then how are you going to be affected so much from it? If you're not putting yourself into positions and places where it affects your practice that badly, right? Badly, then you're not going to incur those karmas. You're not going to incur those karmas. This talks about Indriya Sambara. What does Indriya Sambara do? Indriya Sambara tackles the karmas that we create through the 6 sense bases. Through the 6 sense bases. When those sankharas do not arise, now we know when those sankharas arise, it connects to the past, activating the anusayas even more now. So when the past anusaya, past prapancha is activated, what happens? Craving, attachment, becoming. Does that make sense, everyone? Craving, attachment, becoming. Because to connect present with the past, there has to be a sense of connection there, isn't it? That bond. That comes through craving, attachment, and the need to become. Bhavatanha. Through Bhavatanha. To connect those personalities. Hence, we have again this whole cycle going round and round and round. Again and again and again. Right? So we find the prapancha, awareness over the prapancha practice, to be valid through the 12 links of dependent origination, by it showing to us clearly where can we now put or start or influence our chain of reaction in a manner that I condition or put down conditions for more wholesome way of life, where my life becomes progressively committed towards the attainment and achievement of nirvana. Any questions? Any questions? Why don't you have questions?
Ante, just quickly, I was just wondering, you know, the present effects, is that associated with the current karma, what you call vipaka? Is that like what I'm going through now in the present moment is based on my results of my past courses, and it's only with mindfulness now that I can have an effect of my present courses? That leads to the future effects.
Right.
So yeah, and also with the
Okay, please finish your question, please.
No, I think that was it. The second part, it might be confusing. I was just thinking, like an arahant, they've exhausted all their future making energy. Can't make it.
First one first.
Oh yeah, first one. Yeah.
Now, is our present effects vipakas? Yes, it is. Right? Yes, it is. How? Ignorance and mental formations develop karma. Right? These karmas is not only one, it's also supported by many other past karmas as well. These karmas allow us to see, smell, hear, feel, all of that. For example, we know what a Parsandhi process does. And the development of the salayatanas, the six sense bases, all happens as kammaja rupa. Right? As kammaja rupa. Because they are kammaja rupas, they are all born of previous kammas. Also, when we see ahetuka chittas, rootless chittas, what do rootless chittas do? They fuel the pasada rupas, meaning the basis of sight, smell, hearing, tasting, feeling, right? Those are all fueled by these past causes. Fueled by these past causes. Hence we have them here. But it is not to say that everything that we are experiencing of the present is because of the past. Or rather, hold on. It is not to say that everything that we are experiencing now is because of the past. Now, for example, wait, hold on, that sounds wrong. It has to be broken down into two, right? It has to be broken down into two. Everything that we are experiencing now is fueled by past causes. However, what we experience can be determined by us in the present as well. There's a difference. Now, what is the difference? The difference is, for example, if we are to take the process of vipassana, right? The process of vipassana, we can go into insights right here, right now. As we let go of tanha ditthimana, as we let go of the defilements, as we learn and know how to do it, we will progress. But is that progression wholly because of past karma? No. However, the life that enabled me, if I have a span of 90 years to live, it is the patisandhi karma of my previous birth which gave me the allowance of a long life. My past karmas, good karmas, allowed me to have good friends, kalyana mitras, who taught me the Dhamma, helped me to progress in the Dhamma. That could be of the past, but not to say that all that you experience and see is because of the past. Past condition is possibly there. But those conditions, how you choose to use it, can be determined by you at this moment. When people are unaware, who live lives without a sense of wakefulness, they will go with the flow, with the conditions. But with vipassana, what we realize is, with insights, with stronger insights, what we realize is we do not have to do that. Right? And those realizations comes, it is not just understanding, it is life-changing. Why? Because those realizations come when you dump something. Do you understand? When you let go of something, these insights come. When you let go of certain hindrances, those insights bloom. Those insights do not just come when the hindrances are there. When you let go of the hindrances, the insights arise. Does that make sense, Samantha?
Yes, very, very much so, Bhante. All sorts of things are coming up, like the Arahant, like the clinging aggregates, 5 aggregates. The Arahant won't have the clinging. They've had the 5 aggregates basically, but they haven't got the Upadana, so which doesn't lead to craving and attachment. So they would have ended their bit at feelings, say, and then present causes. They won't really go into all that and create a future birth. And then what is this becoming and birth? The becoming, is that the creation of a something?
Becoming is a connection of being to the experience that has been seen, right? So becoming is categorized into 3. Bhavatanha.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Kama tanha, vibhana.
Bhavatanha, bhavatanha, and vibhavatanha.
Yeah.
Right? Now, for example, let's take kamatanha. Kamatanha is the type of attachment that keeps us within the sensuous plane. That sensuous identity. It is because we identify with that sensuous pleasure that we are kept in the sensuous plane. No?
Yeah. The desire.
What you want, right? Craving and attachment made that up, right? What are we craving and attaching to? Everything that was perceived here in the present effects.
Yeah.
Why? Because of ignorance and mental formations. Right? So this becoming is what attaches us to what has been perceived.
Yes, the clinging. Yeah.
Through attachment and craving.
The glue that fixes it.
Exactly. Now, in that becoming, it has become part of us now. I identify with this.
So we have created something that gives a rise to a birth.
Exactly. It is like, for example, a person who acts calls themselves an actor. A person who writes prescriptions and gives out medicine calls himself a doctor.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. That's
what I mean.
Yeah, that's beautifully explained. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Baba.
And that which we then clung to and identified with gives us a birth.
Yeah. Then the samsara starts.
The samsara is all, this is samsara.
Yeah.
This is samsara on its own. Birth, from birth we cling, then from birth, then we age and we go through that whole cycle again. Right? And within that cycle, again, ignorance, mental formation, all of that happens. Right? So prapanchas arise here or are here with the anusayas, right? They give rise or work with these within the unmindful person, a person who doesn't have any cultivation or advancement of mind or spirituality or self-awakenedness, right? So what happens? We enthrall ourselves in the same old stuff, which is clinging, attachment, becoming, thinking that we haven't done this thing before, thinking that this is such a unique experience. It is not. This is not the first time that we've been married. This is not the first time that I've been a monk. This is not the first time that we are living in the human realm. This is not the first time that we've traveled overseas and we are living with all the comforts or whatever that it is. This is not the first time that I've cried. This is not the first time that I've lost a relative. This is not, we've been doing this again and again and again and again and again. But because of this becoming, this craving, attachment, these present causes, what happens is I perceive everything that happens as present effects as me, myself, and I, as the extreme part of self of this present moment. This is me. And because of that, again, Hari, if this is you, have it. Birth, aging, you continue. So samsara actually gives us exactly what we want. Huh? You know, can't really blame samsara in that sense as well. This is the nature of it. It gives us exactly what we want.
So basically, I'm fueling my craving every time for more and more, wanting more.
Absolutely. And you see now, for example, if you take a human, right, and let us say a being burning the sulfuric sort of hells of Avicii, right? Such a person, who is a human, or what kind of being is born in Avicii? A being who who has inundated and recognized themselves with the hatred that they harbor. It burns. They're unhappy and they spread their unhappiness and they recognize themselves with it. They give in entirely to that burning fire of hate. So what does samsara? Okay, you like fire? Take fire. Burn. That's exactly what you're doing. And when you take, for example, if you are to take what? You would take, let us say, a preta. A preta, what kind of being as a human is reborn within the preta land? A being who saturates one's mind with greed, whether it be rasatanha, right, or whatever sense, usually towards these six senses. That sense of greed inundates, that becomes your personal, just as an actor calls himself an actor, right? Does not see that this is just something that I do, but we allow the whole self to be inundated by this doing. So what happens? A human, when you are indulging and you have created a bond with this tanha, what do you are reborn within the realm or the frequencies of being, where the whole entirety is that sensual sort of experience, whether it be the smell, whether it be the taste or the sight or the hearing, whatever, you become completely inundated. Again, pray, even in our Sinhala language, we call a person that word when that person, he's not aware of what is going on around him, right? He's only focused on that thing, doesn't stop eating, continuously shoving his face as if someone is going to run away with his food, right? Then we call him that word, right? We might not, but that is where the word is used, right? That is exactly what the Pereta Loka is, everyone. That ghoul, that mindless ghoul has no other interest in anything that is going on. His only thing is whatever he's obsessed with. These are things that we create. Does that make sense, Samantha?
Yes, very much so, Bhante. And then just lastly, I know I'm taking a lot. So until we see the dispassion, maybe the CSA, the last for the anicca dispassion, and the ending, isn't it? Nirodha.
No.
And then, nibbida. What's nibbida?
Disillusionment.
Disillusionment. Yeah. So until we see that nibbida, then we carry on in this craving, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely. That disillusionment is very important, right? Because that disillusionment allows beings, right? Allows beings to now give attention to this mind and the insights. When you're illusioned, when you're carried away by sensual pleasures, right? This is not in any way to say that you throw everything away. No. You can have all of this, but don't be fooled that all of these things around you is your entirety. It is not. It is not. That sense of disillusionment is very important, because that is when the being pulls out of that cycle of not giving in. Right? Not giving in.
That experience. Yes. Thank you, Bhante. That's very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Bill?
Yes. Thank you, Bhante. Can you hear me, Bhante? You can. Yes. Right. First of all, Bhante, thank you for this last half an hour we are talking. It was so clear, and we can see how foolish we are, but also we can see, Bhante, that because of those first two things in that of the answers that you have brought, Bhante, right? For example, if you look, Bhante, you've been very fortunate, because even being born to a different religion, you saw to this to an extent that you have changed your religion and you become a monk. But speaking for myself, right, having been born to the religion and everything, yes, we have lived a Dhammic way of life, right, done dana and sila a lot, and now we are meditating and we are listening to the suttas, and we have someone like you who combines everything and is taking us forward on a path. So we've done a lot of merit to do that. But I'm looking at people whom I know, relatives of mine whom you know, and, who have become nuns or given up these things and gone and lived in places, right? See, Bhante, how much suffering is a part of this path to progress. Because if you don't have, I know you know whom I mean, right? If you marry and your husband is horrible to you and everything is terrible to you, you may have money and status and build temples and done all these things. Because of the pure suffering, you just can't. Then you happen to meet somebody like you, Bhante, or some other way, or then and the realization, because again of the past anusas and the things that you have done, you suddenly realize, I could have committed suicide, but actually I have a life I can do. And again, if you have the money and everything, you don't have to sort of give up and go and try and find some nunnery or some place to, as a woman I'm talking, it's easier for men. Because even in Amaravati, if you're over 50, they won't take you, right? You've got to be a certain age. So where are you going to go? And I know many of people who have come and meditated for years here, and they've gone back and they've tried to live in these places. In Sri Lanka, they don't support. So what I'm saying is, Bhante, it becomes very difficult then when you're born a woman, particularly, to leave and to go to find a place. More difficult if you've had comforts in life, right? Because you're used to those things and then you should give up. But if you're suffering because of some horrendous pain or something like that, it becomes an easier process to say, what do I have anyway, right? And when the realization is coming. So how intricate it is. On one side, you have to, it's easier. I mean, people like Kema and them, because they have done so much of merit to be born so close to the Buddha, with one thing they managed to see that figure. But for most of us, we would have probably been during the Buddha's time, one of these 62 others heard the Dhamma. So we are now 4 days a day, 5 days a day, we are coming to Bhante, but we never realized anything before. But even now, having all this in our hands, right? If you're married, or if you have a child, or even if you have a partner who wants to socialize or be with family, you don't get the time even to read your notes, Bhante, right? So, but if you, and if you have grandchildren, at least children, not that they are older and they are probably married and they can be, unless they're sick or they're the problem. But if you have little children, you get drawn into, I've got friends who are very much in the Dhamma, but then the children expect the parents to, do some childcare because all women are working, right? So after some time, so we get, again, having all this in our hands, we are still having blocks that, so we can fall. But to be able to see that the more we get, live this kind of social life that we live as a protectant person, because you've got to have food on your table, you have to have all this, so you have to have enough money. Okay, you can be retired, so you don't have to go for a job, but you have to have enough of a pension, or whatever your investment, that means have to be provided. And okay, you can cook, but not a place to live in. So even now, after spending so much of time, look at all these things that are drawing us away from actually to be able to live like how you are living, Bhante. So it's fascinating to watch how much suffering plays and how we are so close and yet so far, because everything that we do is, but it's always propagating us, because you see things, and you are invited for a party or a wedding or something. Can you say, no, I'm not going to? Of course, if you have become an anagarika and you're invited, you can. But if you're living in this, can you say, I'm not going to wear something and I'm not going to wear makeup? And you can even, but even a sari, haven't you got to wear something that is appropriate for a wedding? Can you just go in a white sari? I know in my family that there are people who, when they were my age, who, because their husbands died or something, they decided we are going to be only in white. We are not going to do. But for a majority of us who are living within a family with one child or more children, if you don't have a child, it's so much easier. If you don't have grandchildren, it's so much easier. But if you have social obligations to your nephews and nieces and people, just see the bonds that are drawing us to perpetuate Bhante. So you're very lucky, Bhante, and we are lucky to have you to keep on telling us all these things, because it makes us realize, exactly that thing, how far we are from this progress. Yes, we can lead a Dhammic life and, reduce. And the thing is that even as a Sotapanna, you still have, you have craving, because you haven't reduced, right? Okay, that sense of the ditti, right? You have samma ditti. So you understand that you're still me and myself. No, otherwise, why do I want to go and help my daughter to look after my grandchild? Because she's my daughter. No, otherwise, if she's somebody else, you won't go. Or if my daughter is sick, wherever she is, why do you have to go and do something? Because she's my daughter. So we are stuck with this me and mine, Bhante, which is because, which I see, because I have seen, I associate very close with the Anagar. And if you look at the Sri Lankan, if you look at the Sri Lankan nun who is now heading, that is the Kemaka. I mean, she had to lose her only child to take that step. And after going and hearing the Dhamma, and I did a retreat with her when she took that decision with Dhamma Jiva Andro, that she said, okay, she was, for a long time, she was living in the community, and then she went into white, but the final step was when, what is the point of her life? And she could do it because, and of course, the husband had to just go away. I mean, she didn't care anything about the husband, but the fact is that the child died, he got leukemia when he was very young, and subsequently he got remission, he was all right, then he got a recurrence again, and when he was a university student, and then when he died, same thing with sister, with Kusuma, right? With Kusuma, she lost one child, that didn't stop her, second child she died. What is the earthly use of this? So can you see, so we have to be like Patachara or Kisa Gautami, these women, right, like us, right? So actually, it's a real disadvantage because the men will just go away, right? But I mean, Ajahn Khemaka did that. And the husband was left with nothing because she just met when the child died. She said, why need I be there? So it's a difficult thing, Bhante. And thank you for bothering with people like us, right? I'm very grateful to you, Bhante, because we are constantly having all these things. So thank you, Bhante. But for me, what you're telling, it's like these few, when I come for these classes, it's like literally going to heaven, Bhante, to hear these things from you with so much of passion. And in English, a language that for me is what I converse with. I had to just say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Jill, the class is not finished yet.
I had to express my gratitude, Bhante. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you so much for your kind words, Jill. Now, the last part of which we have to go into to add on to or to complete. Now we've looked at what we can do or where our influence can be exercised, right? Where within this domain of life, where some energy can be trained through skill to be put into this manipulation of an already corrupt system, in turning it into, or to bring into it a more positive influence conducive to enlightenment, right? Now, we know of, we've heard, we've studied about Anusaya. In Anusaya, we find that there are 7 types of latent tendency. Just to remind, right? Kamaraganusaya, Patiganusaya, Mana, Dityanusaya, Vichikichanusaya, Mananusaya, Bhavaraganusaya, and Avijjāvasava, right? To those of you who are not familiar with the Pali, sensual desire, latent tendency, aversion, wrong view, spiritual doubt, conceit, desire for existence, and ignorance. These are the 7 types of Anusaya, right? Again, sensual desire, aversion, wrong view, spiritual doubt, conceit, desire for existence, and ignorance. These Anusayas are different subsets of one thing. What? Anusaya. These Anusayas, or with these Anusayas lie, as the Anusaya lies in our consciousness stream, right? Affecting it through the past causes that have been created by us in the past, through the cycle of rebirths and deaths that we've gone through in this infinite time of within samsara and the different universes before this samsara, it's also, right? We've created these energies, and these energies have been so closely tied and knit into our being that it lies closely and within our consciousness, through which every time that a certain aspect of the external world is perceived, Anusaya gives rise or comes about with the Prapanchas, to now create or to alter that already existing personality or characteristics. These anusayas are the foundation of unwholesome. These anusayas are the foundation of unwholesome. But we know as practitioners who've committed our lives to a certain amount of goodness and truth, we know the struggles that comes with the cultivation of goodness. We know people ourselves, and maybe we are amongst them, where in the guise of good, we do bad. In the guise of sometimes bad, we might even do good. How these two worlds of good and bad collide, right? Good and bad collide. Where, for example, when we do good karmas, attributing to self, mama meka kare, I am doing this. Mama hondara dana dila sil rakala jeewath wena manussek.
Mama.
Now, we had mana anusaya, isn't it? Conceit. The conceit attaching on to, now that is conceit anusaya at play. The conceit having dwelt into and holding on to that sense of mana there. Right? Now, proliferating or keeping us in samsara, the Buddha has taught this practice of dana, sila, bhavana as a way of coming out of samsara. Now, what has happened? The anusaya has trickled into the kusala, and now we identify it. Now, what happens? Now, if we identify with a person who goes to take sil every poya, the moment that we are unable to do so, right? Let us say, for whatever reason, we are unhappy. We are devastated sometimes, right? Now, what has happened? There is a sense of that worry that arises now, or that those that arises now is connected to what? Is connected to the anusayas, the prapanchas that have arisen and trickled into the kusala. We were on the path to let go, but we have now created an identity aligning with that path. That identity creation does not lead to sunyata anymore. It's another person that we've attributed ourselves to, right? Now, this is not to say, now even the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, he committed to the doing of paramitas, right? But of course, he, in doing so, taught us the right way to do it. So just because the Buddha did it in a certain way during his bodhisattvahood or time of fulfilling the paramis does not mean that we have to do it also, right? Because the bodhisattva was searching for Buddhahood, right? He was literally almost teaching himself or trying to pave and find the path himself. That was his journey, right? Obviously so, the path has to be far more comfortable for us because we have a teacher who has shown the path, right? So that is not to say that we have to, it would not be right, moreover, to compare that to the path of the Buddha because the Buddha was on a different path. It is because of the Buddha's findings that we are doing what we are doing right now. So this is to say, when something arises, as the Buddha says, a person who wants genuinely to achieve enlightenment contemplates the arising, possessing, and the passing away of the Panchupadana-skandha. But it must genuinely come from Trihetuka Kusala. Uttara tamai wenasa thiyenne. Right? Trihetuka Kusalaya, whether it is a trihetuka kusala with alobha, dosa, amoha or not, can only be properly tracked by a person with a certain amount of mindfulness and awareness. Without which, we will make up lies. Not because we are liars, but the thing is we have so much of ingenuous intentions proliferated through all of these latent tendencies, hidden agendas of consciousness, if we might say that, if we might call it that. Because look at the agendas that we have: sensual desire, aversion, wrong view, spiritual doubt, conceit, desire for existence, ignorance. Right? Whilst we are working to let go of existence, we have a desire of existence also with us. So just imagine, everyone, when we allow for a moment of lack to occur, that occurrence would create a condition where we will build on it. So if it is 5%, it will be 6% after. We will continue to build on it. That is the way the Papanchas and the Anusayas work. Right? How do we break this cycle? As a meditation, it is a Satipaṭṭhāna. Simplifying that, Indriya Bhavana. Right? But the whole map of Indriya Bhavana is a part of the 4 Satara Satipaṭṭhāna. Right? But before that, before we go into Vipassana, what could we do? Right? What could we do? Obviously, this process, this task is a great, it's a task of great magnitude, right? It's a big one. We are literally ripping out or working to rip out the sort of the conditions or the mechanisms and instate new mechanisms of life into our everyday being. This needs motivation. So whether it be Shraddha, whether it be Virya, whether it be Prajna, whatever force that you align yourself with, right? Force you align yourself with, it has to be for the right reason, Trihetuka, and either the Dhamma, Buddha, and the Buddha, or together, Buddha and the Dhamma, or the Dhamma and the Buddha, or the Buddha or the Dhamma. Do you understand, everyone? If it is Shraddha, it will be the Buddha. If it is Prajna, it can be Buddha Dhamma, right? Or the Dhamma, right? Dhamma predominant, right? If it is Virya, it may be any one of the Dhamma and the Buddha, right? Now, this is very important. Genuinely sitting with yourself and telling yourself, what is important to me? What is important to me? What is it that I want? What is it that I'm looking for? And align yourself generally, whatever it is that you're doing in your life at the moment, whether it is that you're retired or you're working, regardless, whether you're mothering or whether you're single or whatever it is, whatever circumstance of life, life is better when you have goals in them. Whether it be worldly or supramundane, life is always better when you have goals in them. Or why are we living? So set your goals. And these goals and the need to achieve these goals will strengthen your path. And in this path, the most important, when you have this sense of virya to get it done, to do it because of Shraddha, because of Virya, because of Prajna, whatever reasons there might be, or whatever reasons are your sort of temperament, then start meditating. Right? Meditating. Get into the practice, be dedicated to it. And as you do, the hindrances will be suppressed. When you start meditating, the hindrances being suppressed and all of that, you will realize that you want to go deeper and deeper into these profound states of mind. Because why? Because of the Buddha Dhamma. Right? Because of the Buddha Dhamma. And as you decide that for yourself, you will find the strength and now the ability. Before it was, you couldn't even imagine it. Where you will receive this strength, or how you will stop being addicted or obsessed with certain things. Now it will naturally flow within you, the need to let go of hate, the need to take responsibility for your life, to stop blaming our parents, the need to let go of craving. So your life will go through a process of change. And as you do, with that change that you want to make, or that is now flowing within you, you will discipline your 5 senses. Just because people are chatty, you won't be pushing yourself to be chatty. Just because a friend is speaking ill of a person, or your partner or someone is speaking ill of a person, you will not want to get involved. Not that you're pushing everyone away, but your vibration and the frequency at which you vibrate changes. When this happens, your salayatana, or the data that you perceive and how you perceive data, changes. When that happens, the heaviness of your mind reduces, relaxes, you become lighter, because you do not have and hold grudges. There is nothing that you're sort of drooling for. There's nothing that you're insatiably looking for. All that you want to do is go deeper into yourself, into your mind and body, through the vision of the Dhamma as the Buddha preached and taught. You want to start experiencing the Dhamma, not in a way that is sort of just brushing on the shallow, but you genuinely want to go deeper into yourself, to discover parts of Dhamma that you haven't seen before. And when that salayatana now becomes disciplined, you will experience a sense of lightness. With the sense of lightness, you will begin to see behavioral changes, changes in the way that you think and you behave, changes in what attracts you or what you're attracted to. With that, now you have formed the perfect foundation for development, where now constantly from that point, all that you do is weaken the prapanchas. You become and grow to become far more self-aware. And in that self-awareness and with the practice, you come into a level of confidence, not through mana, but through the Dhamma, the Buddha, and knowing that you have truly dedicated yourself towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, and genuinely try to keep with the practice, genuinely. Not to impress anyone, but to impress yourself in the heights that you could possibly reach, as the beauty of the Dhamma day by day seems more and more apparent. So being so, you have now created the foundation of progress. Now, whatever meditation that you choose for yourself, you will have the basis of commitment. You will have the confidence in the aspects of the Dhamma which reigns in your life, to go into any doctrine or practice that you want to. And when the Dhamma element is within yourself, the prapanchas will day by day reduce. You will discover parts of yourself that you did not see before. Now, people do not need to point out your mistakes. You are open to them. You are sensitive. You are aware. You no longer think that what you think is right and the ultimate, it's my way or the highway. You unsubscribe from these notions of self-centered thinking. And you feel all around like a person. And even at the time of death, if that does unfortunately come about, you're ready to face it, because you know, not because of your past, but because of your present and your commitment and the energy that you've given in most genuinely towards the practice of the Buddha's teaching, and living the Buddha's teachings, that you have nothing to fear. Because although we have lived ignorant lives in our past, that we were lucky enough and we had enough karmas to align ourselves with the pattern of Dhamma. So much so that this Dhamma and this livelihood, there is only beauty that you see in it. Not because of fear, not because of where you will be reborn, or the fear of where you will be reborn, but simply because all you want in your life is Dhamma. All that you want in your life is to, having tasted the fact of the lightness of mind and what your life is because of the lightness that has come about because of the lack or the suppression of the hindrances. You've tasted the life with suppressed hindrances. Now you want to eradicate it. This perception itself takes you into places that brings about the practice, surrounded by Kalyana Mitras, places suitable for the practice, because you have no desire to indulge in the sensuous pleasures, or that is not your driving force anymore. You simply have a mind that has connected to this need to explore this Dhamma within yourself even more. And because of that, the Buddha says, those who live by the Dhamma are protected by the Dhamma in this birth and also in the next. Those Dhammakamo bhavang hoti dhammadesi parabhavo. People who have this desire for the Dhamma, to see the Dhamma within themselves, and as they do see the Dhamma, they see that the Dhamma is truly within yourself. They want to explore it more, and that is exactly what you will receive. You will be reborn in positions that are conducive to the pursuance of the Dhamma. So this is how we reduce the prapanchas, to cut the ties that we have to the prapanchas. It cannot be done in a day. It is a learning process. The malignant and insidious nature of the prapanchas are far widespread, and we realize how widespread it is as we meditate and go about it. But truly, how we align ourselves in frequency, body, speech, and mind genuinely to this path is through meditation. So however much we do study, and however much these studies inspires us and wows us with regards to the teachings of the Buddha and what he has laid down for us to practice, to walk upon, meditation is what truly makes it visible to you. Meditation is truly what makes it visible to you. And when you see, maybe the tunnel is quite long and you only see a speck of light at the end of it, but as long as you see that light, you're heading the right way. And you can have unwavering sense of confidence that you're walking the right path just with that speck of light. So I hope that these teachings on the prapanchas has inspired you to see that speck of light at the end of the tunnel. However much this tunnel might be far, the light is far away, it doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that the time that we spent in samsara, not seeing any lights whatsoever, without any goals in our life whatsoever, without any truth in our lives whatsoever, just consuming. But now, even though we might have many more births to go, it doesn't really matter, because these births might be far more progressive than all the births that we've had in our past, because somehow we've begun to now see the end of the tunnel. All right, everyone, that is the end.
Teruan Saranai Bante, beautiful.
Teruan Saranai.
Teruan Saranai Bhante.
Teruan